We are reacting to my boy Jordy, Season of Discovery, a new standard set for Classic WoW. And as you guys can see by the thumbnail, thank you, Blizzard. Now, Season of Discovery genuinely set a standard that was effectively very hard to beat for a lot of Classic players. I know the Era crowd may disagree, or the Cataclysm crowd may disagree, but SoD set the standard that regular Classic would no longer be good enough for a lot of Classic fans because they wanted the plus. But let's just dive into and see what my boy Jordy has to say.
In 2023, I and a bunch of other die-hard Blizzard fans attended the first BlizzCon in 4 years. Like everyone else, we were excited to see what new projects were in store for this 20-year-old video game world.
Chris Metzen coming on stage was absolutely the most amazing time. I remember I was watching this live from home. I think I streamed this maybe, I don't even remember. I sat there and I was watching it and I saw Chris Metzen come up on stage and you could see the crowd go wild. Well, like, the Giga Chad's back, Green Jesus is back. And like the vibes just were so through the roof. It was amazing, the vibes that Season of Discovery, well, not Season of Discovery, but Chris Metzen set on stage. And then SoD's unveiling was so hype. Everybody was like, Classic Plus is real. But anyways, let's just dive back into it.
World of Warcraft, and they had several game announcements, including the War Within, Retail WoW's current expansion, along with the next 2 retail expansions to follow, Midnight and The Last Titan, and Cataclysm Classic.
This was sad. I don't know if you guys remember this, but the Cataclysm announcement was deathly quiet. Nobody was cheering. Nobody was clapping. It was silent. It was so silent, it was eerie. Like, the Cataclysm announcement was honestly depressing. I felt so bad for the girl that was on stage, like, announcing Cataclysm. I was like, damn, she's a sacrificial lamb.
Next installment of the Classic series to follow Wrath of the Lich King. But another project was announced. A new seasonal server to follow Season of Mastery, Season of Discovery. The first initial reaction from audience members was not great.
Season of Discovery is vanilla WoW with a spicy twist.
It wasn't until Blizzard...
That guy that got mad initially, that was also me, because when they first announced it, I was like, oh, another Season of Mastery. That's nice. Because the way they announced it was what made everybody get turned off initially. Because going from Psalm to Season of Discovery wasn't like the great mental image that a lot of people had envisioned. But then Agron comes on stage, and Agron starts cooking on stage. He's like, you're going to get this, you're going to get this, you're going to get this. And then everybody was like, okay, well, I'm interested now. I'm back. I'm actually excited.
Panel of Classic and SoD, where, fun fact, I got this at front row for, where the hype really started to build. One SoD, where...
What did you get?
Fun fact, I got this at front row for, where the hype really started to build. Once Agron said that famous line,
"It's everything we love about Classic, plus so much more."
That so much more there was kind of funny. Plus so much more. He didn't want to say Classic Plus. He said everything but Classic Plus, which is kind of funny, but still.
He then started to realize the potential of this new game mode. And after getting the beta test SoD at the convention, I really knew we were in for something special. And man, were we. In this video, we'll be going over Season of Discovery, Blizzard's most experimental version of World of Warcraft, and all the reasons why it set a new standard for future versions of Classic WoW. Often you'll hear from World of Warcraft players, especially Classic players, you'll never recreate the first time playing WoW. And to be honest, I actually 100% disagree.
So I'm going to disagree with Jordy there. The first time you play WoW will always be a different experience, a different memory. And the reason for that is you can't recreate who you were at the time. You can't recreate what you were going through and what the game made you feel at the time. For World of Warcraft was for a lot of people a safe space. It was a home away from home. It was an experience that shaped who they were fundamentally. Season of Discovery and Classic Plus in 2019 were all amazing. They were all phenomenal experiences. But you can't recreate that initial experience because of who, where, and what was going on in your life. But you can always have a new shaping experience, a new thing that shapes who you are, what you are, and how you feel. So on that front, Jordy's not wrong that you can get a new thing, but you can never re-experience that original thing. I don't know if that makes sense.
Been plenty of other non-WoW related games that have given me that exact same feeling. New World, and no, I'm not joking. Dark Souls, specifically Dark Souls 3, that was the first Souls.
I'm ass at Souls games. I don't want to sit there and beat my head against the wall. I accept that I don't want to really learn and put the effort into it. And it is what it is. Get good, I'm not going to. But I will say New World was 100% just like that. New World as an experience was genuinely... The launch of New World was something else. The launch of New World was like the launch of 2004 WoW. Or like the launch of 2019 Classic. New World was an experience that, I'm gonna be real, it set a standard for what a game launch should be. New World was beautiful. But just like a beautiful vixen, it was full of shit. And there was nothing to really do at the end game.
Board game I played.
Or any part of the game, I'm gonna be real. New World had nothing to it. Just the vibes. The vibes are immaculate.
Elden Ring, but also Season of Discovery, specifically the launch and Phase 1. SoD's launch and Phase 1 was such a huge success for Blizzard and was so damn fun for all players, myself included. Logging into overcrowded starting zones, being introduced to all these new quests, items, NPCs, runes, and mysteries to discover across the 1 to 25 zones was such a fun and exciting time for classic players. And although not a big portion of the leveling process from this bracket had changed, it just felt brand new because of all of this. Because the level cap had stopped at 25, and because we had the new reimagined 10-man raid with Black Rhythm Deeps, we had the new PvP event in Ashenvale, and the new secret profession quests through the...
I will say, SoD Phase 1 was one of the best attempts at recreating the journey of Classic and forcing everybody to enjoy it. SoD Phase 1 truly absolutely made everybody feel like they were part of that world, part of that journey, part of that experience all over again from the beginning, from the get-go. And I cannot lie, I miss it. I miss those feelings.
Shadowy figure, it created a bunch of new theory crafting to be done. We had new best in slot items to seek and unique ways to get these items that weren't necessarily just from the raid. Even though the cap was at 25, you could still do quests that were slightly higher and explore higher zones, which created small and large group adventures to acquire higher gear, such as Warriors and Paladins Bismail Helm being from the Morbin Fell quest chain in Duskwood for the Alliance. Players would also just venture into higher level zones with large groups just to see what they could conquer, just for fun. I remember taking a team into Searing Gorge to save Rudolph during the Winter Veil event. No gear was involved, no special reward for a quest, we just wanted to do it for fun. But because in some way, shape, or form, we got new content unique to SoD each phase, it created theory crafting and speculation as each new phase was announced. The game was not solved. We didn't.
And that's why the journey was important, is because you actually had to live and breathe and like enjoy the world. And like the standard was set in a way that was so hard that everybody expected every phase would be like this. It's part of what SoD's fall is that Phase 1 set a standard that the remaining phases could not hit. They could not reach it. They could not attain that. Because Phase 1 was genuinely a feeling, an experience, like the launch of 2019 or the launch of 2004 or 7 or wherever you started initially the first time for World of Warcraft.
Have a set BIS list before each phase was out. There wasn't a leveling guide on what to do. And if you wanted to get a head start, you needed to be in some sort of Discord, whether it was your guild's Discord, a server Discord, class Discord, the WoW Secrets Discord, or whatever. And because of this, it leads us to our next topic on why Season of Discovery was just so good.
This was the best part of Season of Discovery. The fact that every single element, every facet, every moment, every journey, every experience of SoD Phase 1, even Phase 2, and even Phase 3, the first couple of weeks, was about learning, discovering, finding, experiencing what the world had in store for us. The secret quest lines, the profession items, the experiences we got, like the 10-man level up raid, that mount dropping from Nomeragon, I got it for me and my guild. The very last lockout is when I got it, or the second last lockout. It was an experience that just made you go, holy shit, this is insane. All the items and all the gear that was dropping, there was no just let me look at Wowhead or this. Every single thing was the community getting together and doing things. These ginormous Ashenvale clashes. There were people setting up like community drives for the Blood Moon event. Every facet and every experience was the community trying to make that experience better and bigger. And then after phase 3, that fell off a cliff, obviously, but
Classic World of Warcraft, or at least Vanilla Classic, had a huge focus on group and community-based content. Elite quests, dungeons, world bosses, raids, PvP, all of this was dependent on a community, whether big or small. Now, you could say this about all versions of WoW, but as each expansion grew on, the effort to make a group, a raid, etc. almost became autonomous. The life of making that community or that group wasn't there. The game just did it for you. Season of Discovery really highlighted the community-driven content through helping everyone solve the new mysteries and content that was added to the game. Because we didn't know it at the start, you needed to ask for help. Somebody found it out and they shared it with everybody else. There was no dungeon journal guide or even just any guide given to us for the new bosses of the new raids and their new mechanics. You needed to communicate and talk to someone to learn these things, whether it was general chat, world chat, trade chat, a guildie.
yeah, the first week or two of each boss was an absolute shit show. I would typically have to figure shit out with my guild. We'd go in there, we'd bash our head against the wall, realize we didn't know what the fuck we were doing, and we'd still clear the content, don't get me wrong. But it was fun. The grind was fun. Because for the first time, we got like retail experiences where we had no fucking clue what we were fighting. We were there for the fun, for the good times, for the good vibes. And I missed that. Like, I'm not gonna lie, that shit was just so fun. And ESPX TV, welcome to the cult. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Forums, or some sort of Discord, you inadvertently were becoming a part of a large community while playing this game. And speaking of Discord, class Discords became huge in SoD, not only because of the theory crafting behind each new phase, your new runes, your Bisgear, your abilities, but also just where to find your runes. In phase 1, my girlfriend and I found the Hand of Reckoning rune for Paladins in Loch Modan before anybody else did. So as we were questing, I would share fun little RP messages in Gen Chat to other Paladins to help guide them to that rune. And if we go back to the SoD panel app,
So I had a funny anecdote from the launch of SoD for phase 1. The first rune for druids, I was playing a Tauren druid, because that's the only druid in Classic. And the very first rune, I forget what rune it was. It was the one that you find right in the starting zone with all the quill boars. We had 5 or 6 false calls where people saying, I found it, and we all go, everybody runs there. You just see dozens upon dozens of druids trying to get to this rune. And you get there and there's nothing there. And the guy's like, my bad, I was joking. And like, one guy eventually did find it. It was right there up on the top. It was a Star Surge. It probably was Star Surge. We found it was right on top of like this little side area. There was a little box up there. You'd have to run all the way up the side to get there towards like, and one guy was like, guys, it's here. I found it. And everybody was saying that the guy was full of shit because of how many baited messages we got about where the rune was. And I was like, I'll go check it. And I checked it. I got it. I was like, holy shit, it's real. And then more and more people started going to get the rune and getting the rune. And then it became like this huge thing where everybody was grinding and finding their content, the community vibes and just the jokes and just the feeling. The replication of it is going to be so hard for any other game or experience.
BlizzCon, this is exactly what they talked about and what they wanted.
We hope to find secret finding communities pop up, both in and out of game, as players scour Azeroth to find all these little hidden things. We can't wait to read general chat as players begin sharing what they found with each other in real time. We think that social and info sharing aspect is super exciting, and we can't wait to see how long it takes for all these little secrets to be found.
Not only was there communication for learning what to do, but actually how to do them and doing them as well. For Paladins and Warlocks, do y'all remember getting your Divine Storm and Metamorphosis rune for the first time? I shared this in my last video, but storming the tower in Northern Darkshore with a raid team of other Paladins and Warlocks for a common goal was such a fun experience. And then grouping up with 4 others in Demonfall Canyon to take out higher level mobs for the final part of our Divine Storm rune was so fun as well. It took a long time, but we had so much fun doing
The Metamorphosis rune was a nightmare to get.
Runes, that's actually a great segue to our next point in this video, which will be a 2-parter.
Runes, a new classic, Azeroth
Runes
adventure.
were a huge success for 2 reasons. The first being the adventure and discovery aspect of acquiring these major or minor abilities for your class. I'm going to use Paladins here as an example because that's the class I made from start to finish in SoD. As I mentioned before, the Divine Storm rune had us traveling all across Azeroth just at level 25 to be rewarded with this iconic ability. What we did didn't know at the time is that the story from the Divine Storm rune would continue all the way till Phase 5. In Phase 1, the launch of SoD was November 30th, 2023. Phase 5 of SoD was September 26th, 2024. That's almost a year long of storytelling that we got from these Paladin class runes. In Phase 2, we were introduced to Eonis, a stranded Paladin, while getting our Sheath of Light rune, involving a current World of Warcraft character, Catherine the Pure, a Paladin trainer in Stormwind. In Phase 3, we would be introduced to Gregory the Truthbearer, a Warcraft 3 original character and one of the right-hand men to Arthas. And then in Phase 5, this would all culminate together along with Ebonhardt, who was a Phase 1 SoD character where you got your Seal of Martyrdom rune to help you get the Truthbearer weapon. You don't get that.
I'm gonna be real, the Paladin Tier 2 questline item is one of the best written stories in all of World of Warcraft. The Ebonhardt experience, getting your weapon, the culmination of that storyline, that experience, the writing on that was amazing. It was phenomenal, and it set the standard for what the world and like the content should be. It was absolutely insane to see Arthas and Uther and all these storylines and see the Warcraft 3 burning of Ebonhardt take place. And I'm not gonna lie, I didn't play Paladin initially. I didn't play Paladin until Phase 7 is when I started playing my Paladin. The experiences that people got to have throughout SoD, it set the standard for what Classic Plus should be. SoD was not perfect by any means. The rune system was not perfect. There was a lot of wrong with it, a lot of flaws with it. Like the rune vendor helped the game a lot. Had the rune vendor been added so all of Phase 1's rune could be bought at the beginning of Phase 2, everybody would have loved the runes way more. But it took so long to get the runes rolling, grinding the runes. A lot of people played suboptimally because of the hours to get, your metamorphosis or your this. That every little barrier and friction made the game worse and worse, despite SoD being such a good experience, because SoD was that. It was a standard that was incredibly fun and illuminating to experience.
That kind of storytelling, that long-term, year-long storytelling anymore. But we got that in Season of Discovery with one class and spec. And all of these rune quests involved us going all across Azeroth to collect items that maybe didn't have a high drop rate, that involved groups going into Blackrock depths or traveling to places we don't really go to when we quest, like Newman's Landing, which is off the coast of Dunmorrow, which you can only get to by swimming from Menethil Harbor all the way down to the southern point of Dunmorrow. These journeys were awesome, and they were time consuming, and they really felt like vanilla class quests. And I know that the devs were so proud of this specific class lore inspired journey for Paladins, because the dev behind it even sent me a summary of it when he saw my Phase 5 speculation video for Paladins. They put so much thought and care and really made this feel like vanilla, and it was so damn fun. I want to also give a shout out to the Rogue Quest too. Getting a unique dungeon ID, having to do solo missions in dungeons like Zul'Farrak and Shadowfang Keep and find these puzzles was so cool and felt so lore appropriate. And finally using Ravenholt as like a hub for rogues was really cool. Although they can definitely do more with Ravenholt, hopefully in Classic Plus. But not
I will say that when it does come to runes, like the rune vendor was a band-aid fix to a bigger issue of the sense that it wasn't clear and intuitive on how to unlock your gear, and having your abilities and your class power locked behind long, arduous quest lines is what bothered a lot of people. I think they should have made reasons to go and get those content, to experience this amazing content that wasn't behind runes. Because the Paladin questline being behind like just the Paladins was kind of bad in my opinion, because that was such a well-written thing that surprisingly very few people got to experience the Paladin questline. It was that good, that amazing, but it was locked just to Paladins. And that's not good for a game like Classic Plus, having such an amazing storyline locked behind a specific class and faction. They can lock things behind classes or items. For example, the Hunter, Molten Core Bow, the Priest, Benediction. But aside from that, a lot of the game should not be locked behind. Your power shouldn't be locked behind hours upon hours of like grind that just makes alt culture impossible to attain. But the rune system, going straight to immediately unlocking a rune at like, max level or whatever, and just paying 1 copper or 1 silver, whatever it was, wasn't the right play either. So there's no real proper fix to this that Blizzard had implemented, but what was done wasn't perfect. But there's just so much amazing context and content to Season of Discovery that people will overlook and maybe gloss over and not give SoD the credit it deserves.
Only were these runes and their adventures so much fun because we didn't know what to do and we had to use the community to help us get them, and the journeys were awesome, but they also helped solve one of the biggest issues in vanilla World of Warcraft.
This is the biggest reason why SoD was popular. No more meme specs. Boomkin was viable, Shadow Priest was viable, Elemental, Enhance, all of these classes were viable. Then you had Shaman tank, then you had Warlock tank, then you had Rogue tank. And on top of that, Prot Paladin was now viable. Ret Paladin was no longer dog shit. You had every single spec, every single class matter. Survival Hunter went from being literally a meme joke to the best spec for hunters. Survival Hunter were popping off. So much of SoD, so much of the design and the philosophy made it so that every class mattered, and that did break PvP, but that's two separate topics, two separate discussions. And I've had a controversial opinion on this, but they should balance PvP and PvE separately. But that's just my opinion.
At the SoD panel at BlizzCon, they shared this meme here.
Bottom line, we want everyone to feel OP.
And they were true to their word on it, except for the end where warriors with Ashbringers are insane, but let's not go over that. Now, I played the classic 2019 experience. I had my Fury Warrior, my world buffs, spent my entire COVID lockdown in Winter Spring farming Firewaters, I got my parses and so on. And I really enjoyed it for what it was at the time because I never played the original vanilla experience and I never played on private servers. But after playing SoD, I can safely say I can't enjoy the experience nearly as much, especially with how amazing of a job the devs did, not only in class balance, but just at how fun and unique those classes were to play. Now, not all of it was on runes, as at endgame, tier set bonuses were also a large portion of the balance and changed how you played almost every single phase. But the runes themselves are what made all classes and specs viable.
Karazhan Crypsia is probably one of the best dungeons ever made in World of Warcraft. But I will say, this kind of felt like it should have been a 10-man raid instead of a 5-man dungeon. Or this should have been 10-man UBRS, because I'm going to be real. This was definitely much harder for the average classic player than it really should have been. But in terms of design, bosses, content, gear, how the game plays, genuinely beautiful, genuinely phenomenal.
Prot and Ret Paladins rejoiced as they could finally do genuine damage and taunt enemies. It only took 20 years for a vanilla Paladin to be able to taunt. Warriors weren't your only tanks. You didn't have to play a Fury Warrior, Rogue, Mage, or Warlock to be DPS. You could play almost every class and spec and you would be taken into a raid group. Yes, there will always be that vanilla charm of the flaws it had, but playing a more finished product of Classic really opened the eyes to a lot of players for what Classic could be. And not only
I know I've been pausing a lot. It is what it is. This is probably the most controversial thing I've had been told to me recently. I am not a Classic player. I'm a Classic Plus player. For me, I want Classic Plus, not Classic. I don't want to play Era. I don't want to really play Anniversary. I want to play Classic Plus. I want to play the future of Classic. I want WoW 2 continuing from the Classic mindset and development. I want a future where Classic is the baseline for the amazing content and design and philosophy that Classic should be. I want the game to go from 1.12 to 1.13 or 1.14, 1.15, 1.16, not TBC, not Wrath, not Cataclysm, not anything like that. I want them to keep building on Classic, which means balance and changes. And that might not make me a true Classic fan, a true Classic player, but I'm a Classic Plus guy and I want Classic Plus. I did all of Classic. I did all of 2019, I should clarify. I did Psalm, just like to like level max level, I didn't really raid there. I did SoD, every raid tier. Except AQ, I skipped AQ. I'm not even going to apologize for that. And I want more. I want more Classic. I want more SoD, more Classic Plus. I want more of a build on the world. Because that's what I feel like is the future for Classic. It's not re-releasing Era Anniversary over and over again. Those servers should never go away. Let people have their once every 5 years Classic 2019 launch. Let them enjoy that. But even Classic players want changes. The PvP changes, Chrono Boon from the get-go, dual spec, small tweaks here or there. People seem to love that stuff because as amazing as Classic is, it's not a game that fits the modern world as well anymore. It's not a bad game. It just doesn't fit the modern world as much anymore.
only were the classes balanced, but they were just overall really fun. Although I struggled like a baby deer trying to walk for the first time, trying to hold threat on my Prot Warrior, it is such a fun class to play. And SoD Prot Paladin is one of the best versions of that class in spec. And DPS Paladins have 4 different versions to play, all of which are competitive amongst each other in a raid setting. That is insane. It's honestly why a lot of us are so sad there's no new content at the moment for SoD, because the classes are just so fun and unique to play, we just want more content to play them with. Which brings us to our next topic to talk about, the actual new content we got in Season of Discovery. The main hype of Season of Discovery was the new content we get in the vanilla setting.
The new content was genuinely amazing, and the problem with how good it was is that they kept dropping the ball in the sense that Black Fathom Deeps, Ashenvale, No Merrigan, Blood Moon again, Sunken Temple, Incursions, and then they would like climb back up like, okay, Molten Core and the BRE event, Blackwing Lair is up here, AQ, Nax and Karazhan, Scarlet Enclave launch, Scarlet Enclave, SoD's over. Like, no matter how they did it, it was this huge up and down, like the constant influx of up and down that just made the game kind of hard for a lot of people to really enjoy.
As we progressed through the level up phases, we got new reimagined level up raids with Black Fathom Deeps, Nomergon, and Sunken Temple. And I know those raids were a long time ago, so it might not be super easy to remember them, but those mechanics for those bosses were actually really fun. I can't think of a bad boss encounter in Nomergon. I loved Electrocutioner's 3-target shock mechanic, Crowd Pummeler being able to knock you out of the arena or grab you and spin you around. The Mechanical Menagerie was a silly fight, like go to chicken, go to dragon, go to squirrel, go to sheep, but it was still a fun and surprisingly challenging encounter. Mechanier Thermoplug wasn't easy either. A lot of guilds struggled on that the first few weeks. And then Sunken Temple, even though it has a bad rep because it was in phase 3, the raid itself was still really good. It had some pretty unique fights, like the slime boss having to kill stuff on the wall to slow him down, or Jamalim and Ogum switching who was the second boss to kill every week. And then fights like Dream Scythe and Weaver were just really fun and creative for a level up raid. And it was fun as a tank to have actual tank swap mechanics and being involved and not just holding aggro and doing damage. And speaking of Dream Scythe and Weaver, if you got knocked in the hole, it might not have been fun, but for the rest of the raid, it was hilarious. And yes, I suppose Black Fathom Deeps was a good raid as well. I'm just constantly reminded of Gamora when I think about that raid, and then I'm reminded about always dying, the bubbles getting ping-ponged back and forth until my health bar gets to 0, and then I want to slam my desk, and we're just going to move on before I crash out here. Although the
content was truly good. The raid design was really good. I will say this right now. The devs can actually cook up encounters quite well, but man, do they suck at balance a little bit. The balance was always off. But the design and the experience and the mechanics was always really, really good. But the design was just slightly not the design, the balance was out of whack. They always messed the design up in those first couple of weeks, but they always I keep saying the mistake. They always made the design amazing, but the balance was always out of whack. The balance was always off and just wrong and just didn't feel as good as it could have been. They did address the balance occasionally, and they would fix it and like address and make things smoother. But the fact that they always got the design perfectly almost, and then the balance just shitting the bed is kind of interesting.
Game content wasn't super new, it was still new, and we had new tier set bonuses and new ways to play our class that made it feel new. As mentioned earlier, we got runes and new abilities with new quest chains and mysteries to solve, new items and consumes to discover, and even new ways to gain experience through arguably the biggest failure of Season of Discovery, incursions. Now look, before I move on, I do want to mention that incursions were definitely cool the first time doing them, as it was awesome to go into the Emerald Dream versions of the zones they were in and do the new content in there. It was just, the endless repeatability of them, the envelope system, and the gold inflation that they caused that were the mistakes and why people hated them so much in the end.
Incursions could have been very well received if they were like 3 quests a day. Or you could only do 5 incursions per day and that was it. If they had only done 5 quests per day for incursions, people would have loved incursions. It would have been amazing, fun content. People would have loved it and enjoyed it. But the fact that you could run them on repeat hundreds upon hundreds of times per day made it mandatory content that was so good, so efficient, so amazing that it killed the game. Incursions on paper were good, in execution were terrible.
Along with the weird retail progression systems we got in Naxxramas with the seals and whatnot, were maybe not Blizzard's best darts thrown at the dartboard. But
also true.
Whether these experiments worked or not, we got something new to try. And I'd also be doing everybody watching this video a disservice if I didn't mention the new world PvP events we got along the way as well, with Ashenvale, Stranglethorn, and Black Rock Mountain. Having such large-scale PvP in Ashenvale, when the event didn't bug out, was such a cool and fun experience in Phase 1. Being in Discord with 40 plus other people organizing a W also strengthened that community aspect we talked about earlier. The Blood Moon event shrank down the group content to 5, but still rewarded organized groups and skilled players. And then the Black Rock Mountain event, whether it be good or bad, really reminded us how it felt to be on a PvP server in Black Rock Mountain. But through all that, the classic devs really did an amazing job of taking current zones and instances and creating new content for us with them. But we also saw the true creativity with the actual new content they made for us. Arguably some of the most fun content we've ever gotten in classic WoW, the Karazhan Crypts dungeon and the Scarlet Enclave raid.
They can. I said this from the beginning and I'll say it again. The devs can cook really well. They just need a little bit more time to make sure that cooking isn't over-seasoned, under-seasoned, overcooked, undercooked. The chicken's raw. They just need to they need some more time to make sure the cooking is actually perfected. But they can cook. Just stop rushing.
Now, I'm sure somebody will mention Demonfall Canyon, and yes, that is new content as well. And yes, it's a fun dungeon, but it doesn't have the same scope or magnitude that the Karazhan Crypts and Scarlet Enclave had. So I will give it a shout out, but I won't talk about it too much in this video. Now, this technically could be a part of the last topic, but these two instances were just so damn good, they deserve their own section. The Karazhan Crypts and some sort of Scarlet Crusade themed raid have been something that all WoW players have wanted since original vanilla back in 2004. The fact that Season of Discovery was the first version of World of Warcraft to get both of these is truly something special. Both of these instances were brand new content with absolutely zero player testing. We were only told of...
I do want to say, I love that I can see Jerdy's sub count going up every little bit. Like when he first, at the beginning, you're showing his BFD footage, trying to hit 250 followers. Then it was 500. Then it was 600. It is kind of cute to see that you watching his journey and his growth. My man Jody makes amazing content, so to see his growth, it is nice that SoD has treated him well in this context.
Where Kara's attunement started and that Scarlet Enclave was a raid. The attunement to Kara, a 5-man dungeon, although long, was genuine to the feeling of vanilla WoW and actually contributed to the lore of how we were able to enter and navigate inside the crypts by creating a magical torch that was the center of the dungeon's darkness mechanic. And then there was actually doing the dungeon for the first time. My group spent 4 hours in there searching every nook and cranny for every secret.
In regards to the attunement though, I do want to say this. The attunement was good, but the fact that you do it on every single ult, and the fact that the dungeon was so hard, and the fact that it was so difficult to get a good tank or a good healer, the fact that it was so reliant on people doing the mechanics, it had too many things that made it a necessity to be a smooth, fun run, that it made Karazhan, instead of being good content, bad content because of the design and philosophy of the players. Karazhan is one of the best pieces of content ever made, but the player base only loves it the first 2 or 3 times. The moment you get your gear, nobody runs Karazhan again. Because it might be amazing design-wise, it's not amazing player base-wise, if that makes sense.
And how to unlock it. We were all in Discord together, looking through other class Discords or the server Discord or the WoW Secrets Discord, and in general chat, asking questions or helping others with stuff that we had figured out earlier. The dungeon itself had so many unique perks for classes and professions like druids and herbalists being able to light up the plants that gave you extra lights, hunters getting a special flare that lights up part of the room, paladins and priests being able to cleanse corpses that gave you a buff, warriors and druids being able to charge through a boulder, warlocks and mages activating a secret boss, and night elves just being able to see farther because they're night elves. So many just old school MMO, Dungeons and Dragons type mechanics were in this zone that really created that old school 2004 2004 vanilla WoW feeling. My only complaint was that for some reason we didn't get any of the original Karazhan music in that dungeon, which I think was a major miss on Blizzard's behalf. But it was still an insanely fun dungeon to do for the first time.
Incredibly fun.
Not knowing
100%.
how to do it and learning how to do it with everybody in real time was so fun. But now let's move on to Blizzard's send-off phase and the raid with it, and one of the topics I'm most excited to talk about because I had so much fun during it, Phase 8 and the Scarlet Enclave. This was a...
And before Jody cooks with Scarlet Enclave, I want to give my opinion on this. Scarlet Enclave is one of the best designed raids in terms of boss mechanics, abilities, the vibe, the feel, the size of it, the scale, the trash, like everything, every element of SoD's design in Scarlet Enclave was truly, truly good. The big problem was it was too hard for the average Classic player. The average Classic player is borderline, well, you guys know what I'm trying to say. They're not incredibly intuitive. They stand and fight. They don't do mechanics well. They don't do good numbers in DPS. A lot of the tanks and healers just aren't that great. Positioning is always off. It wasn't a very average skill level and below player struggled with Scarlet Enclave drastically. If you were in a good guild or a good community, it wasn't hard. It truly wasn't hard. But Scarlet Enclave as an whole, as a raid, was truly really well done. But the overbalancing, the overtuning made that shit really hard. They had to do so many nerfs to make the raid even clearable for a lot of people. It was genuinely a struggle for the Classic community to truly get in there, truly grind through, and truly experience it for what it was meant to be. But it was still an amazing experience. But for Classic Plus, please, the Classic player base is special. You gotta give us something so that these people are carryable. It's genuinely special. That's all I want to say.
Brand new 8-boss raid unique to any version of World of Warcraft. And although it used borrowed assets like New Avalon from Wrath of the Lich King and the Scarlet Monastery dungeons from Vanilla, it still felt like original content.
Actually, New Avalon, it only used half of New Avalon. The northern half of New Avalon was completely organic and original. And the big cathedral is the original Scarlet Monastery. The one that was meant to be the Scarlet Raid that they scrapped well earlier into Vanilla's development. But it was built in Vanilla. It just never actually made it to Vanilla.
And did its job at being a completely unique raid exclusive to Season of Discovery. This raid had some controversy as it introduced players to actual challenging mechanics and encounters, and even though some were definitely overtuned for 20 players, like High Commander Beatrix in her original state, it gave SoD players and Classic players overall a first-time sense of progression on the Vanilla client. It was a great test and experiment to see how SoD and Classic players felt about challenging encounters and progression in Vanilla, and even though it was around maybe 50-50 on how the community felt, if you ask me personally and my guild, we were 100% for it. We loved it. But that's a topic that can be its own completely separate video. Blizzard also did a great job of introducing to us some of the unique bosses and characters in this raid and their lore behind them, like Calderon and Beatrix. And look at me right now, lore is important, okay? I want to make that clear in this video.
Preach! I hate that nobody gives a fuck about the lore. I know retail storytelling was dog shit for a long time there, but lore is important. Why does nobody like the lore? I love the lore, I love the world, I love the community. Well, the lore community. But I wish World of Warcraft gave more fucks about its lore, about its world building, about the storytelling. Because holy fuck, the devs don't care and the players don't care. I'm not talking about the Classic devs, the Classic devs truly seem to care. But I meant like BFA and Shadowlands pissed all over the lore. I get that. It's hard to care after the lore was quite literally you were sitting in the cuck chair watching your lore get fucked. But it's back. The lore matters again. So the lore should matter.
Lore is important. If you did the build-up quest to the Scarlet Enclave and New Avalon, which you should have if you didn't, because look at me right now. Lore is important, damn it. You got a new view on an OG WoW character, Leonid Bartholomew of the Argent Dawn, who arguably became the main protagonist of Phase 8 and the raid, while also giving us lore-wise a bigger reason to want to take down Calderon besides him just being a Scarlet Crusade villain. And in my opinion, creating villain lore is very important.
It is.
Yes, the loot is what we want also, but wanting a reason for defeating a raid boss, especially an end raid and in this case an end game boss, boss should also be just as important. Remember the hype of Illidan and TBC? And don't even get me started on the whole hype around Arthas of Wrath of the Lich King. And although Calderon didn't have the caliber of those guys, after you learned about everything he did to poor Bartholomew and his family, and the fact that he had the Ashbringer on him, man, you really wanted to take him down. We also saw some pretty cool cameos of future lore important characters, like the living iteration of Lillian Boss and Putris as a boss encounter. We got to also fight the Dreadlord Balnazar as a proper raid encounter and not just some dungeon boss. And how cool was it to fight the undead versions of the Scarlet Monastery bosses, Herod, Vicious, and Doan, after they were revived by Calderon. The Reborn Council, when that was data mined, the hype around that was insane. And in case all of that just wasn't enough, we also saw one of the most legendary weapons in World of Warcraft history become just that, a legendary weapon with the Ashbringer. Paladins and warriors, and like...
Before he talks about hunters getting Ashbringer, I want to say, Ashbringer genuinely really cool that we got legendary. There's 75 billion Ashbringers. When everybody has Ashbringer, nobody has Ashbringer. That's all I really want to say. It's the inflatable. The inflatable Thunder Fury from retail. Everybody's got a Thunder Fury. Just like, it still matters. It's still cool, but like, goddamn.
I guess hunters too would get a very fun question on trying to repair it and cleanse it. Those players would even get to go to the vanilla version of Mount Hyjal through the assistance of a WoW character originally introduced in Cataclysm, Thessaly Crow. All of this, by the way, in case you didn't realize, was just in one phase of this game. Could you imagine an entire game designed just like Phase 8 of Season of Discovery? The creativity and game design on this phase alone is nothing to dismiss. It was awesome, and it brings me to the last topic of this video.
They do. The classic devs truly do care. I know some people hate them or disagree or don't think they care or this or that, but the classic devs truly and absolutely do care about classic. They care about the world. They care about what they're doing. They might not hit the mark all the time, but the classic devs really do care.
As I mentioned in other parts of this video, a lot of what the classic devs did in Season of Discovery was just stuff that they were so proud of. And the reason some of these experiments were so successful was because of the thought process behind the design of it. The developers were creating things that they just found fun, so they put it into the game. They weren't always trying to focus on something they thought would sell, but rather just fun gameplay that they enjoyed and they wanted to share it with us.
Season of Discovery is a project that I feel like every game developer dreams of being able to work on one day. Being able to take their favorite game and add something to it and change it up in interesting ways.
I've just made items that I wish were in the game when I played it back in 2004.
And that's what they did back in 2004. Chris Metzen quite literally told you, hey, you go design storytelling, you go do this, you go do that. And then you would have to get some content, some drive, some this or that, and make your stuff. And then he would approve or deny the storytelling or the lore, right? But like, he let the devs cook. He let the devs write what they want, make what they want, and do what they want, because that's what mattered, is you being passionate. And the classic devs clearly care in the modern day and age. The content they added was good.
And on top of that, we got so much response from the classic devs when we gave them feedback. Like, in case you didn't know, the Blood Moon PvP event was a direct response to the Ashenvale PvP event because there was criticism that it was too much PvE in a PvP event. When we first got the Blackrock Mountain event, people hated it because there was no timer when you res. You just res, got camped permanently. So the devs added the Blood Moon timer on there. Think about all the changes we got consistently to class balance when we got to endgame. Zyrene pretty much lived in all the class discords, getting feedback from us on what we needed or what should be adjusted from our classes. And there is so much more I can talk about. There's a whole list of things of how fast they were to respond to some of the criticisms that we gave them or feedback on something that we didn't like. And don't forget, Phase 8 was not intended. We were supposed to stop at Naxxramas, and the Scarlet Crusade raid was supposed to be just like a dungeon. Phase 8 was just a direct response on how much we loved SoD and how much they enjoyed SoD, so they wanted to give us something unique, and they did.
It's actually originally intended to be a lot smaller.
Us getting Phase 8 was a fluke. We were meant to end in Phase 7. And they chose to do Phase 8 because Phase 8 was just meant to be the future, right? It was meant to be for Classic Plus. And for some reason, they chose to make that a big-ass raid, a big-ass experience. Because the initial plan was just a 5-man dungeon. And then we got a whole raid, a zone, and all this stuff. So they care about us. I just wish they cared about us enough to drop Classic Plus today. I'm joking, don't do that. It'll be a dog shit experience. They need time to cook Classic Plus, but still.
Of an experience, but when we saw the response to the Karazhan Crypts dungeon, the attunement questline associated with that, and some of the continuations of the narratives that we had set up earlier in Season of Discovery, it actually really encouraged us to go even bigger with the Scarlet Enclave raid. What started off as a small 5-boss dungeon suddenly grew to a full 8-boss raid, which we think really delivers on the promise of what players have been looking forward to for this content, really over the course of their entire Season of Discovery journey.
When we loved something, we let them know. And when we hated something, boy, did we let them know, huh? And look, there were plenty.
There's a reason Argon doesn't talk to people that much anymore. And the reason is the amount of death threats that man get was staggering. People took SoD being bad or the phase being bad so personally that they just attacked people.
Of experiments that failed, like the incursions or Naxxramas's weird systems that were so overcomplicated for no reason.
I didn't really like that for Naxx. I'm gonna be real.
That were just out of their control, like the unfortunate development timing of Phase 4 during the summer of 2024, because they also had Cataclysm to work on, missed the Pandaria remix, the War Within's expansion launch, and I believe Plunderstorm too. And all of that mixed conflict caused a lot of issues for players, and not just in SoD. We saw it in Cataclysm too. There was a lot of stuff that got untreated for a long time. And yes, it really hurt SoD because of that long Phase 3 and because incursions were also in Phase 3. It did hurt us a lot. But there is a lot of good news, as I've learned and a lot of people have learned, that the Classic development team has grown significantly since SoD's launch. So I think we should expect a lot of issues like that to go away. Now look, was SoD perfect? Far from it, no. But it was something that players like myself fell in love with. I've played WoW for 19 years, and Season of Discovery is easily my favorite version of this game, with Wrath as a close second. After playing Season of Discovery for a year and a half, and playing all of Classic from 19 Vanilla all the way to Cataclysm and eventually Mists of Pandaria, I truly believe that the node changes thought process is just severely outdated. Look, you can go too far.
Preach! No changes is incorrect. You have error. You have anniversary. Let us get Classic Plus. You want hashtag no changes, go back to error. I don't. I want hashtag moderate change. Not all the changes. Retail's too far. MOP is too far. I want moderate changes. Mid-level changes. I want more content, more zones, some slight class balancing, but I still want changes.
I think once you go to Cataclysm and beyond, you start getting over there towards Legion and Shadowlands and stuff, then yeah, we're not playing Classic. I mean, personally, I think Classic stops after Wrath, but I believe changes to these games should be encouraged, especially when there are major flaws, like a Paladin tank not having a taunt ability. And if you played through those Classic games too, we had changes there as well. I remember in Wrath of the Lich King when they first added the Titan Rune dungeons, where you get catch-up gear by doing slightly more challenging heroic dungeons. They also added a vendor using unique raid and dungeon currency that would have TOGC or Ulduar Bis gear when that phase was old content. And to my knowledge, almost everybody loved that. There was no hate or frustration towards it. We welcomed it. I know I said this earlier, but yes, there is a point where it's too far. And if you watch my last video, one of the main things is I don't want retail graphics. I hate retail graphics and retail models. There is a, hey, that's too much. That's not appropriate to Classic. But I think SoD was a very, very successful game. And I hope...
I do agree with that on the graphical change. I think if they enable it as a toggle, HD on, HD off, I think it's fine. But if they don't give us a toggle, absolutely no to the graphics.
That future versions of Classic, whether it's seasonal servers or the eventual Classic Plus that we're all hoping for, go a little more towards SoD and don't stay too close to original vanilla. But look, whether you're a Classic purist or a SoD lover, the Classic developers just set a new standard for Classic World of Warcraft with how much attention and love they put into SoD. So whatever the next version of Classic is, whether it's a seasonal server or whatever, when you make a version of WoW where we don't know everything at launch, there are secrets that we only find out through the community when you force player interaction to happen and you just create fun gameplay that you care about. You create a successful game that people will love. Thank y'all so much for watching this video. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Do you agree? Do you think SoD is the future of World of Warcraft Classic, or are you just a Classic purist and you hated every moment of this video? Regardless, let me know how you really feel down in the comments below. Make sure you like or dislike if you hate it, and subscribe to my channel. Follow and sub to me on twitch.tv/dirtyjd, and follow me on all my socials in my link tree down below. As always, thanks for stopping by, thanks for saying hi, and voice crack, and I'll see y'all in my next video.
So that was a really good video by my boy Jody, and I like, this is a really, really good video. Thank you, Rainy, for the Prime. I truly appreciate that. Welcome to the cult, the deep state, your robe is in the mail. But my man Jody made an amazing, amazing video right here. He is absolutely correct that SoD set a standard that is way too high for them to ever go back to just regular Arrow anniversary for me. Those people deserve their fresh. They deserve their servers, right? They deserve to get as fresh every 5 years, every 4 years, whatever it is. Let them have the Arrow servers, the anniversary experiences. But the future of Classic is in the future. The future of Classic isn't Arrow anniversary, it's Classic Plus. And that's what we mean. That's what we truly, absolutely need, is a future. Now, I'm not saying it needs to go full retail. Don't have to add graphics. It's not a make or break for me. It's not a make or break for a lot of people. But don't waste time and energy on points that aren't amazing and aren't wanted by the community. Graphics aren't that a big deal for a lot of the Classic players, but content is, class balancing, new raids and new dungeons. All of this stuff is truly important for the future. I'll link Jody's video in the description down below. Make sure you guys go check him out, subscribe to him if you haven't. Amazing content creator. But thank you all for watching. If you like this reaction, like and subscribe. If you hated the reaction, it is what it is. It's a react channel. Fuck it. Dislike the video, but still subscribe so you can hate my next reaction as well. Thank you all for watching. Ebonhardt out. Peace out, everybody.